Afternoon to you. Happy birthday and get well.
I will be getting well. You know, for all of you out there who've not had the opportunity to see this, you must not have opened an Essence or Jet or an Ebony magazine because it's there. Here at BT Shop, of course, we're going to offer to you the fabulous price tag in just a few minutes. However, before we do that, we have for you a wonderful work of art in the form of a watch. We're going to give you a close-up shot of this and tell you about it. The artwork, of course, is done by Pancho Brown. Take a close look at what we're going to offer for everybody out there in the form of a delicate watch. By the way, this does have a modified, it's a leather band that there it is. That is gorgeous. Do me a great big favor, if you will. Dial in instantly for it. It's number 592486. It's called Embrace. It's only $39. Tell me a little bit about that print.
Well, Embrace is probably one of my third best-selling pieces. I have the first two that are going to be shown in the next segment. It really shows the family unit, the male embracing the woman, embracing the child. And it's a really important piece. I mean, it's one of the pieces that family is such a central theme for us. I mean, this is where to start. This is the start of where we solve most of our problems with the way we live. And you don't see a lot of pieces depicted that show the full family unit. You usually show the woman and the child, but they don't, very seldom they show the man, woman, and the child. So it's a real important thing. I mean, everybody has a tie, and this piece brings you back to that tie. Raising your children and being exposed to something like this is very important too. I mean, a lot of us can imagine what pieces were in our home when we were coming up, and it may have been Martin Luther King, it may have been a flower arrangement, but very seldom do we have any pictures that depicted our, especially family units. So I think that's real important. I mean, I think the positive nature of family is something that will take us to the next level.
Please remember that this is in very, very limited quantity. If you're interested, you must make a beeline to the phone. An 8-inch band, I can call this unisex because I will tell you the guys will look great in it. I would wear it as well. And of course, you're getting a work of art by your total history in art is so illustrious. I mean, you've actually been on no less than everybody who is anybody on a talk show. You've had well over 50 individual premieres of your artwork, showings everywhere around, and yet I meet you, and I will tell you, prior to meeting you today, I had in my mind a much more mature and older
person.
Absolutely.
Yes,
so how do you manage to create such wonder and such beauty at such an early age?
I think that age is something that everyone has experiences, and I got into art at a very young age. I showed an interest probably.
It's gone.
I got interested in art when I was around 4 years old, and thanks to my mother and my family, they nurtured me through it. And so I started in business at an early age. At around 15, I had my first full-time job doing art.
They saw the talent.
Yes, so
Here it is, girls. Get ready to dial in. It will be instantly sold out. This is the Black is Black. It is the very first piece of art that I purchased from Pancho Brown, and I'm sure if it's yours, it certainly won't be your last. Take a quick look, dial in right now, and enjoy the beauty of shades, colors. This is Black is Black. It's 22 by 28. It's only $29. The item number 609292. Tell me a little bit about how you decided to come up with something like this.
Well, Black is Black is probably my most important piece. Back in 1988, I came up with a theme of unity. We talk about racism, and we can't deal with racism outside of our group until we deal with racism within our group. I know very, very light complected African Americans and very, very dark complected African Americans, and it was just always so interesting to see how differently we treated each other. So this piece is really done to deal with that subject. And later on, as I got into it, I developed a series out of it. I have another series called Gradations 1 and 2, which were both limited edition pieces. Both of those have sold out. But these pieces are readily available, and so far this is one of the top 15 African-American prints in the country. It really got some popularity when it was shown on A Different World. It was featured on A Different World for 2 seasons, and that really helped boost the popularity of the piece. But it's a real important unity piece. Most of my work is about unity to some degree, but this Harmony series is something that I'm going to be working a lot with in the next few years.
Now tell me, what subjects do you like to portray?
Say it again.
What subjects do you like to portray?
I like to portray family and, again, unity. Unity is something that runs through a lot of my work. Sometimes I do dance themes. I like to deal with motion, rhythm, emotion, and my later works are a lot about spirituality and family spirituality.
You know, I look at the beauty of this, and not just the blending of color, but although you're looking at just parts of faces, there's an innate beauty and a serenity here that you capture in the eyes. It's just wonderful. I've had this print now for quite a long time, and I not only look at it and see something different every time I pass it, but I've noticed people entering my home will stop and pause a minute and think they have it, and then they'll pass it, and then they'll come back and look at it again.
Well, I think that the eye, again, is the gate to the soul. It really shows you a lot. A lot of times when you talk to people, you can learn a lot by looking at the eyes. But when I did this piece, it was really funny because a lot of the distributors, when I first launched this piece, thought that it would never sell because it was done with an untraditional medium. But it quickly one of the top 10 pieces that are on the market right now.
Well, I understand how popular you are. As a matter of fact, we'd like to welcome in a shopper, I believe, on the line for us right now. Hi, you're on the air with Poncho Brown. Your name is?
Well, yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I'm hanging on.
Hello? Hello there.
Yes.
We have you on the air today.
Thanks.
Your name is?
How are you?
Just terrific.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm doing fantastic. We didn't get a name?
I can't believe I'm on there.
Yeah, you're on air. You're on air.
What's your name?
My name is Crystal, and I'm from Newark, Delaware.
How you doing, Crystal?
Fine.
Crystal, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent. It's a pleasure to welcome you in.
Thank you.
What did you choose today?
Give me a picture. I chose the black is black.
Excellent. Sweetheart, would you do me a favor? Listen through the telephone, not over the television. There's a bit of a delay. Okay? What is it about this particular piece that prompted your call?
Excuse me?
What did you like about this?
I like the faces, the way it comes out of the picture. And I think it'll go good in my living room.
Excellent. Is this your first piece of artwork from BET Shop?
Yes.
Excellent. You made a great choice.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, enjoy.
Well, we certainly thank you for shopping.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
One of the things that I'd like all of you out there to understand, and better yet, let's some of the celebrities that you've done work for.
Well, we just featured one in your last segment. Susan Taylor has a portrait I did of her about 2 years ago. Bill Cosby, Anita Baker, Oprah Winfrey, Dick Gregory, quite a few people.
Yes, and I know that a lot of you out there making the call on this again, please be quick. Buy multiples if you have a friend or relative out there. Our price is quite outstanding at $20. And you can own it. Now remember, the piece that you're looking at is in actually poster form. We framed them here on the studio set so that you could see what it looks like framed. It measures a 22 by 28 and it is outstanding. Where have your works been seen on TV?
Well, Different World has featured some of my work, and HBO had some of my work on one of their programs too. But quite a few of my pieces have shown up on like Bill Cosby show, A Different World, and it's been getting around. Sometimes when you go to the movies, you don't look at the pieces that are on the walls, but lately I've been noticing that more people are noticing the shows, the set decorations in movies and TV. So keep looking, and you may see some of these pieces turning up.
A minute and 38 seconds left. Who were some of your inspirations?
One of my inspirations was Charles Bibbs. He's another very well-known African-American artist. He was one of the few people that I looked at and said, hey, I think I can do this. Another artist was Paul Goodnight. And out of female, Cynthia St. James is a very good friend of mine, and she's a good inspiration, and Varner Honeywood. So those were all contemporary
Now,
favorites.
when I ask you this question, you're going to go blank because I'm looking at these pages and pages and pages of who's who. Tell me a little bit about your education. Now, you mentioned that your family was a very, very strong influence early on in your life, but how did you get to this point?
Well, I mean, I think all of it, I started at a vocational high school, which means I went to a trade one half of the day and I went to my academic classes the other half of the day. So I was fortunate enough that I caught on to things really quickly as far as lettering, which is really my forte. I really started doing handwriting and signwriting for different organizations, and as well as TV and some movies. And after the years, evolved, I started doing things for graphic design, and Dick Gregory was really the first person to give me a severe break and gave me an opportunity to do the illustrations for his Bohemian Diet product. And that's when things really began to catch on for me, because then my work was aired on Ebony, Essence, Jet magazine, and so forth. And that education in high school also allowed me to get a job in my 10th grade year. So I've been doing this professionally for about 14 years now.
Now, you know, you mentioned getting a job in your 10th grade year. It is very difficult for the masses to see a work of art like this and even think that at the tender age, of course, 16, 17 years old, that you were actually earning a living with your artwork.
I've been earning a living with my artwork for 14 years now.
Wow.
And I think what happens is we were miseducated about art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
609-292, currently still available at $29, but we're about to move on. What you were just looking at was the female version of it. This actually is the counterpart, and they both would make a wonderful combination in anyone's home. Take a quick look, and we'll offer you this very, very quickly. You must make the call at 609-293 at $29.95. Now, was there an outcry when you did the first to do a second, or did you do
First did the series, I had envisioned them being two, but it was a 2-year time period between when I released the first one and the second one.
Okay.
It really was a whole piece. I did one piece that was mostly females, and then I got a lot of males that were really upset. Oh, why? What about us?
can
And I said,
imagine.
well, just wait a little bit and put it out. But it really makes a nice set. And for most people that have concerns about decorating, I've even had both of these pieces framed in one frame, which really makes a nice over-the-sofa piece. So it's been very popular.
Well, I can say that for many of you out there, you live in Baltimore.
Yes, I do. I live in Baltimore. My family's in Baltimore.
A graduate of Maryland Institute of Art.
Yeah, I came out of Institute.
And they actually prepared you in 10th. You know, it's so awesome to think about that, because I have a daughter right now who's in 10th grade, and I can't think of her making a living on anything that she does.
Well, Carver Senior High School is a very prominent high school. As a matter of fact, they were just voted one of the more successful high schools in Maryland recently. And that school is very instrumental in getting a lot of artists started in their own businesses. Because it was a vocational training school, it really trained people as entrepreneurs to open their own businesses, which was really great.
Talking about opening their own businesses, how many businesses have you owned now?
This is probably my third.
And at this tender young age.
You keep saying tender.
Tender young. Well, today's my birthday. I can say that.
Happy birthday.
At your tender young age. Yes. Please remember that should you desire this one there. So this is a more recent release than the first.
Yes, it is.
And if you were lucky enough to get the first two together, make a wonderful pair. 609-293, $29. At a wonderful, wonderful price tag. So where are you exactly in this painting?
That's supposed to be a secret.
What do you mean?
I think it's pretty obvious.
A self-portrait is a secret? Uh-oh, we let the cat out the bag. Look at this, so detailed. Look at the detail here. Now, were you, when you first started to paint, as adept at creating reality? Because I know a lot of artists create caricatures and not, you know, this looks like a portrait.
Well, I do a lot of different styles. I do about 4 different styles in my work, but I think the realistic pieces are the ones that have been really catching on. African Americans really relate to pieces that are realistic and that are figurative. The more abstract or loose styles, sometimes they have a problem interpreting. So a lot of times my more realistic pieces are the pieces that really tend to do well. And
for all the collectors out there joining us on these, I'm going to briefly let you tell everybody out there about the recent fire that you've had in your studio.
In that fire, back in November the 10th, we had an 11-alarm fire in Baltimore, which everybody heard on CNN, but it ended up being my studio. And in that studio, I lost close to 2,000 originals. And I lost just about everything that I painted from age 8 to present. So it's been a real struggle trying to get things back in place. There's been a lot of really good people behind me, and family, and the art industry as well. And we've been able to put the studio back together again, and I have at least 35 of the 50 pieces that I had on the market back in swinging for things again. So
please make sure to stay in the ordering process. We're going to give you a review of what we brought out so far in the segment. It'll be quick. Number 594682, Lessons in Living at $29.95. If I'm not mistaken, there may be 2 left available. Let's go right ahead and take a look at what else we brought to you. The African Rhymes shirt at $14, number 5926065. We also brought to you ensemble shirt, number 58661, in the print. Number 568553 at only $29. We then moved immediately on to the watch, which did sell out a work of art from Poncho Brown, and to item number 609292, which is the women's version of Black is Black at $29. And right now we're bringing you, of course, the counterpart. And you know, this was a good move. You know, women buy art a lot. So see, he did the women first, and then to appease the guys out there, he gave you this one. It's been a pleasure to have you here in our studio, Puncher. I hope you come back soon and bring us some other works of art at great prices. You never know who you'll see here on BET Shop. Remember, we endeavor to bring you the best at great prices, so we'll continue. You come right back.
She was the first person to receive 10 Oscar nominations. She won 2 Oscars and was the first woman to be awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Film Institute. She was known for her toughness and refusal to compromise, both in the roles she played and in her own battles with movie studios, executives and co-stars. In her later years, people were riveted by the television interviews in which she would speak candidly about her life and her career. We begin with an interview from 1958, when Davis was in the UK filming The Scapegoat with Alec Guinness. The actor Derek Bond joined her at Edgwarebury Country Club, where, ignoring the threat of an impending storm, Davis discussed the beginnings of her film career, the qualities she looked for in a leading man, and introduced the audience to her daughter, Barbara.
Miss Davis? Hello. I apologize for our climate.
Oh, please don't. It's quite like our own.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Miss Davis, you began your career in the theatre. Did you intend to stay in the theatre, or did you just look at it as training for the films?
No, I actually started in the theatre to be in the theatre.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, when I started in the theatre, we had silent pictures, and I don't think any theatre people had any idea what would happen when sound came in, as we say.
Yeah.
It was a complete revolution, actually, because then they did need actors trained for the theatre.
Yes.
Because of the sound. So then there was an enormous trek to Hollywood by practically, they signed practically all of us as tests, you know, to see if we would work there or not.
Now, did you find that, did you go to films because you felt that there was more scope for an actress in films than in the theatre?
Well, I look back on it, I don't know. I guess I felt that if it was an opportunity that I, as a very young person, couldn't afford to miss, probably. I didn't go with great anticipation.
You didn't?
No, not at all. But I felt I was probably very fortunate, and I should give it a try.
Did you enjoy the change at the beginning?
No, well, I had a very difficult time in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was not welcomed with open arms. As a matter of fact, I arrived in the Los Angeles station and had been told I would be met by the Universal officials, which was my studio, and no one was there to meet me at all. So we kind of staggered to the hotel, finding our way around, my mother and I called the studio and I said, why wasn't anyone there to meet me? And they said, well, we didn't see anyone get off the train who looked like an actress. So I said, well, I had a dog with me. They should have known. But it was incredible. It was just a whole new era, and we all felt we should try it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Now, people who've seen you working on the set have written that you are a very technical actress, always conscious of the camera and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you give a sustained emotional performance. How do these two go together?
Well, I've never actually ever been very bright about the camera and the technical part. Mm-hmm. You know, this is one thing I've not coped with. I've had quite hard enough time to do my part of it. The only time I ever sort of have a problem with the camera is if I notice it.
Yeah.
You see, this is awkward. As far as the emotional continuity is concerned, this is really training. This is the hardest thing, of course, for the theater actress to do.
Yes.
When she starts in films. We talked about that a little earlier. To leave off for half an hour and come back and hit the same pitch. And I would feel sort of much more pleased with myself if I could do it, if so many others couldn't also. It's really a training that one must work on very hard.
Yes.
And actually, George Arliss, who was my great mentor at the time when Hollywood was about kafuffed for me, gave me a very good hint once. He said, never make a scene in front of a camera that you don't remember what went before and what went after.
Yeah.
Then it would usually tie in.
Yeah.
In other words, just don't sort of go in without reviewing in your mind exactly how it was.
Yeah. But the technical thing of getting your marks at the same time sustaining emotion. Do you
That is practice. You are honestly, I don't really know how we do it.
Yeah.
Because you must do it without ever looking. It becomes an instinct, I feel, finally. Not at first. This is extremely hog tying at first, you know. You feel like a puppet, sort of, that can't move.
Now let's talk for a moment about the character you played. I read on a poster once that nobody's as good as Bette Davis when she's bad. You have played quite a number of bad women. Is it because you think playing nice women is dull?
Well, of course, I sort of never call them bad women. I have a theory that no one person is all bad and no one person is all good. The only requirement I have is character, at least, is definite, whether good or bad. I think the more definite people tend to have more sort of evil traits, the more interesting people.
Yes.
And that is probably why.
Now, in these very different characters that you play, how do you get into the character? How do you set about it?
Oh, I just think you pray half the time. You know, I don't think there's much planning that you can do. If you do a Somerset Maugham story, like of Human Bondage, you practically have a textbook. This is different. I mean, you read this book and you know this character from what he said inside and out, which makes it easier. With an original character, it's sort of your own ideas of her and just thinking, trying to think the way she... I don't know.
There's a school of thought that thinks that actors should completely identify with themselves with a character. I think it's called the method. Do you approve of this?
Well, no, I don't. Because it probably dates me that I've... it's just not for me. I must be fair and say, maybe it is for some people. But I think it's a very untheatrical kind of acting.
Yeah.
You know, not that I don't think films, prime requisite is a certain reality, but there is a certain way of giving a performance to your audience. And I think this is a little bit like peeking through keyholes at real life. I just don't really understand it at all. Don't like it, I must say. I don't. Oh, Bette. Bette, come here. I want you to meet Mr. Derek Bond, my daughter Barbara.
Hello, Barbara.
Not a very satisfactory day for riding.
No.
How long have you been? Have you been over here before to this country?
No, I've been here once before when I was only 4 years old, but that's pretty hard to remember.
Mm. How many foreign countries have you been to outside America?
This trip is the only time I've been over. I've been to Spain, Italy, and France, and this country.
Do you enjoy traveling? Do you like it?
Oh, yes, I like it very much, but it is work.
You get homesick? Which work is it?
I don't get homesick.
You don't?
No.
When you grow up, would you like to be an actress like your mother?
That's not one of my first choices.
What would you want to do?
I'd like to be a secretary.
Secretary?
Well,
Yes.
goodness. Darling, why don't you run along? See you later.
Goodbye.
Nice to meet you.
And you. Miss Davis, how did you feel if she had said she wanted to be an actress?
Oh, well, wanting to be an actress is just, if you want to, you must. Kind of a, I guess it's a kind of a drive, and it's a thing that you absolutely have to do. And if this were it, then she must. I could hope for her that her life would run along a little more normal channels, and that she wouldn't have this great need for expressing herself in this way. But if so...
Do you think people can be happier doing something else? I mean, have you...
No, I think one is happiest doing what one must do.
Yeah.
You know, I really think I've been an incredibly fortunate person and had a most wonderfully happy life as regards the accomplishment of my life. I don't think it's an easy life, you know, I must say.
Yeah.
Why don't we go in and have some tea?
Good idea, thank you. Now, your success has given you the authority to choose your director and your story. What do you look for first when you're considering a new film?
Well, I try to be very honest and worry most about the story. And I think increasingly in our business, since the years I started, the story has become the more important thing. Yeah. And I think for the most part, I have been able to. One also has to say one considers the part as well. But I think of the two today, I would prefer the story that I think the audience would like.
Yeah.
I think that's the picture that's selling today more than just a story that features a sensational performance, which once I must say we could get away with.
Yeah.
But I don't feel any longer.
You've starred with some very distinguished leading men. What are the qualities that you would consider the most important in a leading man?
Oh. Well, I think that he's a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I think that he's a good actor, and I must say it's an enormous help to me if he enjoys acting,
Mm-hmm.
because this makes the film a much happier thing to make.
Yes.
It's basically.
Would you say it's important to like somebody you're playing with off-screen, or do you just consider
No,
them as characters?
I think that is. I think one would be very limited to think that way. I think there's nothing to do with whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think the talent is the whole thing. Because many sort of unpleasant people are very talented. You know, one would limit oneself very much, I think, if one cared how much one liked somebody personally.
The bond between mother and daughter did not remain as warm as it was captured in this interview. As an adult, Barbara claimed her mother had been emotionally abusive. She accused Davis's fourth husband, Gary Merrill, whom Davis met on the set of All About Eve, of being a violent alcoholic. These claims were all strongly denied. In 1972, Davis was back in the UK and back being interviewed, this time by Joan Bakewell, in front of an audience at the National Film Theatre.
In your autobiography, you confess that it was when you saw The Wild Duck in the New York Theatre, it was at that evening, that very moment, you decided to become an actress.
I sort of always knew I'd do something, but I'd never I was 16 then, I believe. But the girl who played Hedwig was at the Jewett Playhouse in Boston. We were just twins, and I somehow identified with her. Plus, it was the kind of a part I would love, and I finally played it.
From that moment on, though, once you had said you wished to be an actress...
Well, I continued with school. You know, I graduated from prep school, and then I was very fortunate in a mother who allowed me to spread my wings, and she saw to it that I went to New York to a dramatic school, which is the proper training, really, which you do much more in England than they do in America. And it just sort of went on from there.
Well, I was going to remark on the fact that your mother's backing of your ambition and her total dedication to your career
And without being a stage mother, she was never around where I worked at all. Just her belief was extraordinary. I don't quite know why she had it. I certainly didn't in the beginning.
How dare those Hollywood moguls at the time when you first went from New York to Hollywood suggest that you couldn't be as sexy and glamorous as any other star?
Well, according to their standards, you see, I wasn't. Now, this was really in the very beginning of talking pictures, and all of us who came out from the theater were not actressy kind of people. You know, we sort of had our own color hair and maybe a couple of teeth crooked. We looked, you know, totally different, and they were very, very puzzled. You know, and off-screen, we didn't go around all dressed up, say like a Harlow or somebody would, you know? So they just did not understand us at all. So we just were, you know, they called me the little brown wren. But then, finally, you see, nobody helps you when you go about makeup or about the camera. It's a wholly new profession, really. And finally, they find out, you know, the best way to wear your hair. They put a makeup on you that does the best for you. It's just a slow process of getting to look on the screen what you really thought you looked like in life. You know? Because I thought I was fairly attractive till I got to Hollywood, but I didn't for very long. You know.
But you did have to fight off all their attempts to glamorize you in their terms.
Oh, yes, yes. Hepburn, Margaret Sullivan, and I were the three who really fought it. You know, although when I went to Warner's, they made me, you know, really bleach my hair. And I knew it was going to limit me the part, so I snuck down one day and had it, you know, put back the ash blonde hair I'd always had. And 1 year later, Mr. Wallace sent for me and said, "You've had your hair re-dyed." 1 year later. He'd never seen it. But if I had gone for permission, he wouldn't have allowed it, you see. And I didn't want to go through life with a very bleached head of hair.
But it was the factory getting to work, because they even suggested changing your name, didn't they?
Oh, yes, they wanted to call me Bettina Dawes. And to be a little vulgar in this illustrious group, I said I refuse to be called Between the Drawers all my life. Which I would have, no question.
It's very well you joking about it now, but of course at the time, for a young girl...
Heartbreak.
It must have been
It was absolutely heartbreak. Yes, I remember sitting in the outer office and Mr. Lemley was talking to somebody, and he was talking about me, not knowing I was there, and he said, "Yeah, she's got as much sex appeal as Slim Somerville." And you see, you're so right to... Oh, I was defeated. And for instance, they would say, "Who wants to get her at the end of the picture?" And this does... True. And this really does catastrophic things to your ego. And I didn't have a lot of ego, and never have had lots anyway, which is a big misnomer about actors. We have very little ego, basically, you know.
So how did you salvage what little
Well, it
was
just
left
all,
of your confidence?
well, it's sort of changed the whole... At least I could hold my head high in a film of his, which was an important film. Then I had 5 or 6 more years, you know, when I came to England and fought the whole thing. But you just had to hang on. And Ruthie, my mother, was, you know, so cute when all the years went by and these awful things were said about you. She'd always say, "It's the best fruit the birds pick at." And I thought it was so sweet. You know, she said, "Just remember." Because it was heartbreaking. Of course it was.
For that period of time, Warner Brothers must have thought you were, although when their top star, a very difficult property indeed.
No, I don't think so. I was, we weren't allowed... Warner's was a marvelous workmanlike studio as opposed to Metro. Metro was really a beautiful glamour place. There was no red carpet for any actor at Warner's. Absolutely not. We were not allowed this. And we just all worked very, very hard. And I wouldn't, you know, those 18 years were my life, and they were very, very good to me. And I regret today that the young people don't have contracts to work under. Because the contract gives you a continuity. See, that's what I mean by longevity. Nobody could escape me. You know, you made 8 and 10 pictures a year, you know. You know, you really did. And then also, the Warner product was the first product sold for television. And this is many, many years ago now, 65 films of which were mine. So I just sort of kept on going, you know, again, longevity. But I was fortunate there, too.
Is it true that you were called the 4th Warner brother?
By Bob Hope, yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely, absolutely adorable. We had this marvelous Warner employees party every year, and he emceed it this particular year, and he got up and introduced Miss Bette Davis, the 4th Warner brother, which I thought was lovely.
That was the film where you first worked with Olivia de Havilland, wasn't
Well,
it?
she and I were there together.
Yes.
Many, many years. She's my great, great
She's
friend.
become a great friend of yours now.
She's always been a great friend of mine.
Is it difficult for stars to be close friends?
Well, actors as a group are not my passion.
What about one by one?
Socially. No, I always socially love writers and directors, much more interested. A group of actors together can be rather tiresome, and whose rushes will what and all this, you know.
You said there is a remarkable thing in your book which rather bewildered me, but it sounds very splendid. An actor is always less than a man.
Oh, this is a very old French saying.
An actress more than a woman.
That's right. It's a very old French saying.
Do you agree with that? And
yes, I have to be very honest. I think I don't think you can make generalities, and I think there are very, very many exceptions. Certainly, that beautiful man Claude Rains and our beautiful man Mr. Tracy and Mr. Cooper and Mr. Gable certainly were not less than men. But it's a strange profession for a man, truthfully. Steve McQueen, for instance, does all this motorcycling, you know, to keep him sure he's a man. He told me that. No, because he's the most marvelous guy, Steve McQueen. It's just great. And he told me one night, he said, you know, I said, why do you take a chance? You're one of the few smashing young men that have come along, and we need you desperately. He said, because it's a strange profession for a man, and I just want to stay in something else to keep being a man. Interesting.
Miss Davis, something I've wanted to ask you for 30 years.
To marry you?
Three others got in the way. How did you get started on the stairs? All your marvelous entrances were downstairs. You just made a wonderful one now.
I have lived on stairs, haven't I? I don't know. It just always happened. And also, stairs are very, very dramatic. You know, they are truthfully dramatic. I've killed men on stairs, fallen down on stairs. I don't know. It's a strange thing, because I say that about myself in all the parts, you know. In Madame Sin we're making now, there's a gorgeous staircase, and I said to the director, you of course are going to have me come down those stairs. He said, I never thought of it.
The success of the interviews like this led to Davis touring the world with her show, Bette Davis, in person and on film. In 1975, a book and that tour brought her to the UK once more, and to an appearance on The Parkinson Show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was at a press conference the other day which had 150 journalists at it, which was for you. And I doubt if Henry Kissinger would have got, or any head of state would have got more journalists there. But somebody asked a question of you there about what it was like to be a Hollywood legend, and you denied that you were.
Well, you see, unless I am performing, I don't really think of myself very often in the professional part of my life. I really don't. And so therefore there's no way you could think of yourself as a legend, and I can't help but be complimented. You must not ignore this and say, well, it's just nothing. But I don't think of it. I don't think of myself that way.
You don't?
At all, no.
But I mean, you accept, if you look back on the history of Hollywood, there have been what? I suppose 3 great women stars, haven't there? There's Garbo, Hepburn, yourself. Would you agree with that running order?
Well, I will accept the running order. Yes, I will accept. Of course, I'd be happier if I got first billing, but I'll take it.
I was putting them in historical perspective.
No, if I am included with those 2 fabulous women, I am delighted.
What, in fact, you're over here now, apart from the book, you're touring, aren't you? And you're doing a show.
Yes, it is an evening with me on film and on stage.
And audience participation, which is what Ron
my
Moody
part of it, yes, is absolutely with the audience.
was talking about. What's the question you get asked most of all by these people? Because you've done this all over America, haven't you, and all over
I was in Australia and New Zealand all the first part of this year, which was a fabulous trip, and I found a fabulous country, you know. Well, they're very, very varied. There is one question I am always asked. Did I name the Oscar? And fascinatingly enough, the only night I was not asked this question was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the night of the Oscar show, which I thought was very, very strange. Because I'm always asked that. I was asked that everywhere in Australia and New Zealand.
What's the answer?
Well, I feel I did.
How?
My first husband's middle initial was O, and he never would tell me what it was, because he detested the name so. And finally I found out that his middle name was Oscar. And the rear end of the Oscar looked like him.
Rear end?
And I always called it Oscar. Now, the Academy refuses to accept this, and I sort of willingly say the Academy.
I see.
But that's my memory of it. Of course, it was a long time ago.
When you first went there, you said you were a puzzlement to all these people, and indeed you must have been. Did they ever try to tart you up, glamorize you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In a film called Fashions of 1934. Yes, they made me up as nearly as possible to look like Miss Garbo, which of course is utterly impossible. They gave me the lovely long bob and the nice, beautiful wide mouth and the long, long lashes. It was really sickening because it wasn't my type. And thank God I had brains enough to know that, you know, and I never let them do that again.
Yes. How do you mean you never let them do that again?
Because I just didn't. I just said you cannot either fire me or let me be what I personally am. You cannot be somebody else, or a copy, or anything else.
But as a contract artist, of course, I would imagine that took a certain amount of guts, didn't it?
Well, yes. Yes, I was a meddler for my own good, but it becomes self-preservation, really, if it had continued that way. And they did that with so very many theater people they brought out. You know, changed all their teeth, changed their noses, changed everything. And those who had any individuality just never made it because they just looked phony.
Of course, I suppose Of Human Bondage was, in fact, the film that was one of the big...
That was the first step on the ladder.
That's right.
And that was a loan out to RKO, because that was the first rung.
Yes.
That's right.
And you played a Cockney, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Can you still do the accent?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and do it.
Just wondered if you could, that's all.
Oh, yes, I received many compliments. Of course, when I started the film with an all-English cast, particularly Mr. Leslie Howard, they were very, very distraught.
Really?
They're very upset that an American girl was playing it, yes.
Really?
Very.
But you gradually won them
Oh, I
over.
don't mind. That's what Mildred said. Oh, I don't mind. And the thing about it was, Mildred was a ladylike Cockney. You know, it's much easier to do the very broad Cockney. Yeah. But she always tried to be a lady, you see, so it had to be a very legitimate speech. I worked very hard on it for many months before I did it.
Yes. Did you ever feel, because you cornered a market in Hollywood, didn't you, at one point in your career, of playing not evil women, but rather...
No, they were very varied. I played just as many others.
You did?
Evil is remembered more.
Yes, I suppose.
Evil is, for instance, newspaper people know this. You know, they don't print many good things about people. Mm. There is a mad interest in evil in all human beings, I really think.
Yes.
And a remembrance of it.
Well,
definitely.
Let me put it another way then. In some of those movies, certainly, you played a rather intimidating woman.
Oh, I had some marvelous parts, like Little Foxes, you know, marvelous women to play that were very difficult.
Mm. I wondered if, in fact, the kind of, that sort of image that grew up around that time, if it had ever affected your relationships with men off screen or with your fellow actors, whether they arrived with a preconceived notion of what you
Oh, I think many, because I've played many women of that kind, that there is a preconceived notion of me.
How true would it be?
But I never behaved that way.
I
mean, imagine going home and being Mildred in bondage all evening at dinner, you know.
Of course, a lot of actors would say, in fact, that you must live the part, that you must carry it through.
Well, everybody to his own. I'm not going to criticize an actor who has to do that. Maybe that's the way that actor has. Paul Muni did this, always.
What, took the part home?
Oh, Bella Muni, his wife said she had lived with more men than any woman in the world.
I'm going to ask you a question, actually, which is a quote from a book, not that book, but your autobiography, which was written in 1963, in which you said, all my marriages were a farce.
In The Lonely Life?
That's right, The Lonely Life.
I said they were a farce.
Mm.
Well, that was a strange thing for me to say. Now, there must have been something before that quote and after it.
Well, it was in the last chapter, as I remember it, where you were summing up your life, and you were talking about the difficulties of being the career woman, the star,
yes,
and at the same time maintaining the married status.
Yes, well, it is difficult, no question. So that's what I must have meant, that they seemed like farces, because they did not turn out to be neither successful or real marriages.
Would you, how would you feel about working in today's more permissive cinema, where, I mean, in your days, I mean, there was...
Well, I wish we had had some of the permissive. I wish we could have had half what is today. We could have been more honest in all the love stories. Mm. And I wish today they did it half as much. As regards the nudity, of course, we were never faced with this. That I would never, ever have done.
You wouldn't?
No, and there are many young actresses today suffering from the fact that they will not do it either.
No.
And they're losing very good parts for this reason.
Yes. And what does the future hold then? Are you going around touring with this
Well,
show?
I do this. This year I'm the second time. I shall probably do this show once a year. I hope next year to go to South America.
Yeah.
And I don't work terribly much anymore. I have just finished a film, so this has been a very big year, much more working year than usual.
Yes. That's what keeps you slim, is it? Keeping on the move and keeping busy.
Well, I've always kept on the move, yes, yes.
And if we could just sort of sum up in I don't know, do you have, when you read that book back and you look at your career, is there one sort of philosophy that you had through life which sums up the book and sums up you?
Well, I think I stated in my comment at the end of this, and it took me a long time to decide what to say. The one thing I think that really stands by a human being is their work, in the long run, over all the years. One may have great disappointments in all sorts of areas, and even in your work, but if you still have a work you love, that is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, Davis, thank you. I'd just say that if I got one ambition left, it would be to have played Paul Henry's part in Now
Well,
Voyage.
why don't you try it before we go?
Well, shall I do it? I really
on.
want to do this. I wonder if the band could give me a... Harry, can you play that lovely theme?
Yes, let's play the theme.
That's
Now
right.
you
Can
take
I-
the 2 cigarettes. Da 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 dee da da.
We can't go on beating that.
My dear, it was perfect.
12 years later, it was another book promotion that returned Davies to the BBC, this time on the Wogan Show. Now aged 79, a series of strokes had left her looking very frail, but the personality, forceful but fun, was as evident as ever.
Well, can I just establish before we start how we call you? Because there's a sort of argument. Is it Bet or Betty?
It is supposed to be Bette. It is taken from the French Balzac's cuisine Bette. The original pronunciation Bette.
Yeah.
And it took me 15 years to educate everybody to say Betty, and I found out that they were all right. But of course, Betty I prefer.
You prefer Betty?
I prefer, yes.
How
So
does it-
I accept either now, just as long as they call the name, that's all I care.
Because a lot of people here call you Bet, and I think in America it's Betty, isn't it? Mostly Betty. in the
Well,
States.
no,
Really?
sometimes it's Beat.
Beat.
Yes,
Beat.
I don't like that very much.
No. Oh, Pete Davis. Do you like visiting here? Or you like visiting England?
Oh, England is really my second home. I was born and brought up in New England. And we're all the same kind of people, after all. We all came from here.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, this is really a second home to me, England.
Yeah, because somebody said, misquoted you perhaps as saying you didn't like being here or something, didn't they?
Oh, yes, that I detested coming here.
Yeah.
Yes,
why
well,
should
I
they
think
say
those
that?
things we just forget.
Yeah.
Pretend they weren't said, because it's absolutely absurd. I adore coming to England. I've been here, I've made about 8 films here, and I look forward to coming here for my book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which you've just done, of course, your book.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you've also made 8 films here. You've made 100. We were totting them up. You've made about 100 films. The last one
Nearly,
was your
I think.
100th film, I think.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. What, having been famous, successful, 2 Oscars, 10 nominations altogether, there would be a tendency to rest on your laurels, wouldn't there? Why do you keep going?
Oh, because I love making films. Yes, always will.
Or the roar of the crowd?
And there's never really resting on your laurels. You must get better. Get the next thing better than the last one.
Yeah.
And that's an incentive.
Do you remember the beginning?
Oh, very clearly, yes.
Do you
My
find...
memory's very good, even at this wild age. I remember everything.
Well, we won't be indelicate and ask you how old you are.
Oh,
but...
my dear, everybody knows how old I am. I am 79. I've never lied about my age in my life. Yeah. I have to say, that announcement, you applaud with great pleasure. I don't applaud that.
Distinguished now, can you look back over the 100 films and say, that was the favorite person I worked with?
You mean director or actor?
Actor for a start.
Well, I think my favorite person to work with was Claude Rains, who I consider one of our greatest actors. I really do.
Who was your unfavorite?
Well, Edward G. Robinson was kind of a pig about his photograph. And, yes, I had to kiss him in a scene as a very young girl. And I didn't care about that very much. No. He was the kind that would go to the editor and say, now you know that long scene speech that Bette has. I have a lot of thoughts to get over, so you can keep cutting back to me. Yes. He was quite a pig.
Well, you had a reputation of being a pretty tough woman yourself. You wouldn't have tolerated that, surely. You would have said to the director, keep the camera on me, wouldn't you?
I'd have left that up to the director.
Really?
Of course the director plans all that. We don't plan it.
But you never made suggestions like, say, Edward G. would say. You never suggest anything to a director?
Oh, heavens, no. No.
Was there any actor, and you worked with so many, but was there any actor that you wanted to work with but never did?
Oh, of course. I never worked with Clark Gable. I never worked with Gary Cooper. Actually, I never worked with any of the so-called terrific male stars of the day. See, we worked with people in our own studios.
Was there any part that you desperately wanted?
Yes, for many, many years I wanted to play Mary Lincoln and start her out sort of, early, before the White House and go on. But it never works out. Yes, I would very much wanted to do that. You have to ask me about my book. You see, I know you're enormously popular in England, and I'm thrilled to be on your show. I came on this show to sell a book. I am in England to sell a book.
Oh, I don't know. We're glad to see you, whether you come to sell a book or not.
Yes, I'm a saleswoman. Yes, they
well, I think that probably...
Sedgwick and Company have bought my book, and I must say I'm very proud of it.
A lot of the information that obviously I'm talking to you about now comes from the book, because it's a biography, and it's all about your film.
No, this is not a biography.
Isn't it?
No. Not all about my films. They're never mentioned.
Okay.
No, this and that is exactly what it says. This and that. Odds and ends and odds and ends. Now in England they have added the two words, a memoir. Well, they are of course many, many memories, but it's really not necessarily that. But it's not autobiographical at all, no.
But it's about you.
It's just about things I think.
And
things
people
that
you've
have happened
met.
to me.
People you've met.
And people I have met, yes.
Yes.
And we worked very hard on it, and we're very thrilled. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for 4 months, which is terrific.
Yeah.
So we can sit here and say it's successful at home. We hope it will be successful here. And you're very... I appreciate very much you gave me this opportunity to talk about my book.
Had and still have a reputation for being a formidable lady, both to work with, and indeed you had a one-woman strike against the studios, didn't you, against Warner Brothers?
Yes, because I wanted good directors and good scripts. And I signed for a film here in England. And Mr. Warner took me to court. And I lost here. But in the long run, what do they say? I lost the...
You lost the battle but
battle,
won the war.
but I won the war, yes. By the seriousness of my getting good films, which I was not getting. And I knew I would never go anywhere if I didn't have help with good scripts.
What gave you that drive? Was it your mother, who I know was an enormous inspiration to you, great help?
No, I was complaining constantly about my bosses, the men who paid me, and I got sick of complaining, and I said, you must do something about it, or just don't talk about it, which is true. So that's what I did about it, hoping it would work out.
Yeah, and you won the war.
And he had an option on Gone with the Wind, and the last visit with him in the office, he said, oh, I said I was going on suspension. I was not going to work for a while. He said, I have optioned the most wonderful book for you. The title is Gone with the Wind. And I looked at him and I said, I'll bet it's a pip. And off I went. And when I came back from England, it was a pip.
It was a pip.
It was a pip.
Yeah, but you can't win them all, for goodness sake.
No,
What about a film of your life?
Oh, I hope never done while I'm here.
Who would you like to play the part?
Well, we'd have to do some searching. I don't know. I am very against these life stories on film with people alive. I mean, for instance, I don't know who would play Ruthie, my mother. No, it would kill me. It would really kill me to have. I don't want it done. And my life really and truly has basically been work. And there's not a lot else in my life but that. And I think it would be extremely dull. I really do.
Well, you had 3 husbands.
I knew you were going to say that. I almost said it for you. Well, that wasn't...
It wasn't an uneventful life.
No, well...
Sorry, it isn't an uneventful life.
No, so you find 3 men that are my 3 husbands, and they're nothing like the husbands were. No, but I knew you'd say that, of course. Well, I just hope it's never done while I'm around.
Well, I hope you'll continue to delight us with your performances.
Well, I do thank you for this, really and truly.
It was a great pleasure.
Plus, nice to meet you. I believe in former years we couldn't make time to be on your show. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember now.
So it's good to have you.
And you're incredibly attractive.
2 years after this appearance, Davis died of breast cancer. Her passing away made front-page news across the world and ended another chapter from the golden age of Hollywood.